I'll tell you, I didn't think that I was going to have a life like this where people would be coming in with like no hearing in their ear and then I'm fixing it. Or a woman coming in saying like, I've been told I cannot have children. And then we help her to have that child. It's, I mean, it's amazing work. It's not what I would have been doing at all as law enforcement. I would have been getting yelled at and stopping fights and doing all those things. And I don't know how much of a difference that I really would have made because of all the obstacles that I would have had to face. But here, people come in, and even if they're just coming in for general wellness, they change when they leave us. And it's been really fulfilling.
What y'all listening to?
Limelight Highlight Podcast.
Welcome back to Limelight Highlight, where we highlight individuals tackling everyday problems you thought couldn't be solved. I am your host, Jonathan Rosario, and what you just heard is a clip from today's episode where I'm joined by Alexandra Williams. Alex is the co-founder and hyperbaric administrator for Holistic Hyperbarics, a female-founded business that is purposely providing hyperbaric oxygen therapy in a restorative spa environment. Alex also happens to be the first and only Black woman owner of a hyperbaric oxygen therapy clinic in the entire United States. She's from Oakland, California, and in this podcast shares the chain of events that has brought her life to helping others through her clinic and practice. Holistic Hyperbarics is one of the only holistic health clinics that subsidizes treatment for those who can't otherwise afford it. Founded and led by a queer Black woman with a majority female board of directors, it is the most and best reviewed hyperbaric clinic in the nation. So a lot of accolades for this podcast here. Since opening in 2017, year-over-year revenue has doubled. They're focused on developing hardware and software innovation along with building proprietary technology for data aggregation, and most importantly, they're purposely creating atmospheres where patients feel seen and heard. Something many of us, I can attest to, are yearning for when we're getting treated, no matter where we're getting treated. Best of all, they're currently in the investment round and you can get in now by visiting wefunder.com/holistic.hyperbarics. The link will also be in the show notes for those who are really interested. And if this introduction wasn't enough to get you to look into this amazing opportunity, then listen to the show and hear all about how Alex and her team are making life-changing impacts on their community. The stories Alex shares are breathtaking and something that needs to be heavily shared, which is the whole reason she's on this podcast. And hopefully you guys get inspired, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. Now, I didn't forget about our fun fact. Now, today's related fun fact is that hyperbaric oxygen therapy was first used in the U.S. in the early 20th century. This is back when Orville Cunningham used pure oxygen to successfully treat someone dying from the flu. Pretty wild, right? He developed a hyperbaric chamber, but then later had to dismantle it after his use of the therapy for other conditions failed. Not to worry, the therapy was once tried again in the 40s when the U.S. Navy used hyperbaric oxygen therapy to treat deep-sea divers who had decompression sickness. And by the 60s, the therapy was also used to combat carbon monoxide poisoning. Fast forwarding to today, where, hint, hint, you got to listen to the podcast to hear about all the great things that hyperbaric oxygen therapy has been used for and treating for other sicknesses. So, without further ado, I'd just like to say thank you for listening. I hope you guys gather some really good information that could change your life from this conversation. And yeah, help me welcome Alex to the podcast. Welcome, Alex Williams, to the podcast. I got in contact with you from Madison. You said she's part of your PR team.
She is, yeah.
And how did you hear about the show?
Mainly through Madison. She had really good contacts, and she sent me a few of the episodes. So it's been fun to see where you guys are going. And I think my company's pretty in line with what you guys have had before.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get into that in a second, but why? So obviously, because you're in line with it, is that the reason you guys wanted to get on the show and just kind of?
Yeah, and I think for us, it's really important that I get into interviews with people that look like me and would share the same politics as me. And this was right on. And I was like, yeah, get to them as soon as possible.
And for our listeners who don't know, you are the first Black woman to own a hyperbaric wellness clinic or therapy clinic in the entire United States.
That's correct.
That is
I'm
amazing.
definitely different.
Yeah. And so just before we get deeper into that, you're a member of the Oakland community in California.
Yes.
And just tell us and the listeners a little bit more about yourself and how you got into this line of work.
Absolutely. I mean, how much time do you have? I was actually not supposed to be doing this with my life. I was on a path to become a law enforcement officer.
In Oakland.
In Oakland.
Okay.
You know, if you're a person of color, and even if you're not, if you're an American, you knew these names that started to come out. And as my grandparents will tell me, these weren't the first names. These were just names that had cameras towards them, right? We started to learn about these names, about Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner and Mike Brown. And that was right when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do outside of working on an ambulance. I worked on the ambulance for 10 years. And while I was on the ambulance, we started to see these names and these cases of these Black men and women who were getting gunned down or strangled or killed by law enforcement. And I just wanted to be a part of the solution. Now, I am the granddaughter of Black Panthers. So you can only imagine when I said I wanted to become a cop, how much they weren't okay with that. But I have always believed that you need to have all people at the table. And if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And so I was bound for a career in law enforcement. And right out of the academy, I wrestled. It's one of my sports that I played. And after the pandemic, I'm hoping to go back to it. And I tore my shoulder one night wrestling at a meet. And I had done Ironman triathlon before that. My coach had a hyperbaric chamber. And so I remembered hyperbaric chambers as part of our training. And I thought it must be really good for someone to use it when they have a soft tissue tear. Because all I got from my Western medicine doctor was a prescription for Vicodin. Yeah. And like, okay, you're in your 20s, go figure it out, right? That was it. And I had good insurance, and that was what good insurance got me. And so I came home and I was like, you know what? I want to get into a hyperbaric chamber. And so I went to a couple facilities near me in the Bay Area. They still exist. And I had a really bad experience. I had an experience where it felt really medical and cold, and the doctors were not kind. And that's the nicest way to put it. I felt like a burden in the system and less like a patient to be taken care of. And so when I came home, I'm $800 lighter in my pocket, and I didn't feel like I was cared for. And so going through this situation twice, I was like, that's enough for me to know that I don't need to be in the system. And so I came home and I actually took my savings and I bought my own hyperbaric chamber.
So you were sold.
My plan was to.
You were sold from day one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so I bought a chamber, I brought it home, and the plan was heal my shoulder as quick as possible, get myself into the force, and continue with my career path. And when I came home and I healed my shoulder in a record time, I started talking about it on Facebook. And my friends started coming over, and they had different conditions. Like one was recovering from surgery, another one had a motorcycle accident, somebody else was dealing with depression. And when they started getting amazing results, they started talking about it on Facebook. And then their friends started coming to my house in East Oakland. Now, I don't know how much time you spent in my city, but I'll tell you that it's not a normal thing that people just do that, right? This is not, someplace in North Carolina where everybody's just nice and friendly and you can just go and get some jam somewhere. And what was fascinating to me really early in this was that strangers were coming to my house, not knowing exactly what they were about to do there, but coming there because they knew it had to be better than what their doctor told them. And every time a new case would come in, I would just hit the books. I had a good base knowledge in anatomy and physiology and working knowledge from my 10 years on the ambulance. But I wanted to know, how is this device helping all of these conditions all at once? And when it got to a point where I couldn't just be there all the time, I would leave my key in a lockbox so that people could come to my house, use this chamber. I didn't charge any money. And I was like, just clean it with these wipes and then, go. that I realized that something was happening. I didn't know what it was, but it was something. I sat down with two of my friends and they seeded me $40,000 and we started the business. And now here we are, 4 years and 2 months later, we are the highest rated facility in the United States. We've seen thousands of patients. And we're at the precipice of our next investment round where we are valued at 40 million. So it's been a ride.
What the understatement here is the way life hands you lemons, huh? The way.
Woo! Yeah. Now it hasn't always been easy. Like it's been tough. We've had growing pains. We've had patients that you just don't need a lot of care. But the base of what I have done from the start was to be the antithesis of what I experienced in the industry. So we really focus on the care of our patients. We tell them that you've come home here. Take it off. We see you, we hold you, we listen. And it's amazing that each one of them will tell us it's the first time that someone sat and listened to them about what's going on with them. And we go out of our way to take care of them. Today, we are delivering air filters to two of our patients who are recovering from long haul COVID-19, who are affected by the smoke from the fires here in California. So we go all the way out of our way to take care of our people. And what we have found is, of course, it's a winning model because healthcare is not like that, and it should be. So we're paying into the equity of what healthcare should be.
Especially when you come from neighborhoods like us, where the cure is to give you a pill and to send you on your way, and then you wonder why so many people are addicted, or
right.
they're struggling even more, and life falls apart after that. What are some of the issues that Hyperbarics does, like aids people with? Like what are some of the issues that a lot of people who aren't familiar with this type of treatment?
Let's talk about it from a very base level. You and I are talking right now. I like to talk with my hands. You do it a little bit too. Everything we do requires cellular cash, right? Just like outside in the world, you are a capitalist body. You're a capitalist organism. So everything you do requires your cellular cash. And the big driver, the paper of your cash, or the main thing of your cash, is oxygen. And so you need it for every function you do, when you digest, when you sleep, when we're talking together. And so we need to look at hyperbarics as that base level. And when you look at it like that, we can use it for pretty much everything. What are the main things I see? I see concussion. I see stroke. I see COVID-19 long haul. I see fertility. At our facility, we don't limit ourselves to what is covered by insurance. Insurance covers 14 conditions, and they are needed conditions like diabetic wounds and radiation cystitis and things that are really, really crazy chronic things on the body that people need to solve right away. And we see those too. But we also open the door to what is a clear indication, which is pretty much everything, because you need it for cellular cash. So we see a wide variety in our facility.
And hyperbaric chambers are considered a class 2 medical device?
It's a class A1 medical device.
A1,
so
okay.
It is like an MRI machine.
Okay.
You do need a prescription to use it. And we help to provide those prescriptions for people. In the time that I've had this business, I've only denied 4 people our service. And that was because they had late stage cardiac issues that could not take the pressure of the chamber. If you've been in an airplane, you've been in a hyperbaric chamber. All a hyperbaric chamber is a pressurized controlled area where we increase the amount of pressure and give you 100% oxygen. What that does is it forces more oxygen into your bloodstream, not just in your red blood cells, but in your blood plasma, which goes throughout your body.
Which actually leads back to your coach having one at his house, because I know a lot of fighters use that for kind of recovery, and sometimes they even practice or they train at high altitudes because it helps them with their stamina, with their muscle recovery and things of that nature.
And so this is the opposite. This simulates, of course, an underwater, so more pressure versus less. And we're actually seeing now, what we're trying to investigate right now is instead of having these athletes go up to altitude, which is a temporary change, when your body